Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm not where Jeremiah is, but definitely excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, amazing stuff that you guys are doing to build community and grow as a community as well. So excited to give back to you guys and help you with this workshop. Before we begin, I'd love to know the energy level in the room. I see a lot of people here. So I'd love to get in the chat, like out of 10, how energetic do you feel to network and to do LinkedIn? Or are you kind of like on the 5 or 4? Right? I'd love to see how in the chat, if you can tell me how energetic and how excited you are for the session. Oh, I'm getting some decimals. Yeah, that's interesting. 7.5. Okay, I see a 9. I see a 10. That's great. All right. Yeah, I want to see tens, right? Or sevens. I see a 0 as well. That's great. And I see a 5. That's great, guys. But yeah, like Paul was mentioning, I'd love for it to be interactive. LinkedIn isn't a place for one person or two people. It's definitely more of a community, and it's definitely very different for each person, the way you network, the way you use LinkedIn. So I'll definitely probably share my screen, show you what we do on LinkedIn. But thank you. I love to see the energy. So yeah, the different topics we're going to cover today through networking is one, you know, why do you network and how do you network? What's the best way to approach networking? Do you do that right when you need a job or an internship? Do you do that all the time? And we'll also have a portion on LinkedIn where I'll also share my screen, talk to you a bit about best practices within LinkedIn, of what content you should have in your description, the best ways to search on LinkedIn when you're looking for people. And finally, we'll do a Q&A. All right, I hope that sounds good. Do feel free to ask questions as we go. I'm happy to look at them if they are relevant for that point. So to begin, at least for networking, I mean, when you hear of networking, what is it that you think of, right? Do you think of like coffee chats? Is there something specific that you think of? Definitely feel free to mention it in the chat. Like when you think of networking, what is it that you think of, right? Have you done networking before at all? Yes, no. You can raise your hand. I'd love to like hear career fairs. Yeah, that's someone never sharing accomplishments, life updates. All right. But ideally, when you think of networking, it's more of relationship building, right? And when you think of relationship building when it's family and friends, it's usually kind of easy because you don't have any kind of pressure. You're not as afraid that you're going to be judged or critiqued. But networking in a professional sense is more of how do you build relationships with people that you may have never met before, right? People that are going to probably be your recruiter, going to be your manager, going to be people that you work with. So networking in a professional sense is a lot of really being able to understand who the person is, being able to understand the value of their time, and also being able to understand how is it that you're going to try to build a relationship without making it too transactional, right? So for some of the fundamental things to think about while networking, one is what's the purpose of that networking outreach that you're going to do? Are you going to try to learn a skill from them? Are you going to have them as a mentor that's going to be there through your journey to help give you feedback? Are you doing it specifically for a job that you're interested in? Maybe you found an internship and you're like, I'd love to get a referral or learn more about this internship. So definitely understanding the why or why you're approaching them is really important, and also being very honest about it, right? And you can do this through email, you can even do this through LinkedIn. When we do LinkedIn, I'll show you how you can do it. Ideally, you want to tell them about what it is that you're getting in touch with them for. That way, there's no question marks about it. And we always really emphasize on sending a personalized note, right? You can connect with people in many different ways. But if you don't tell them why you're connecting with them or who you are, they're most likely going to be a bit confused of what you're trying to achieve, right? So it's definitely good to think about that beforehand. And also, when you reach out to people, it's great to follow up. You won't believe it. Like a lot of people definitely like reach out to people, they get connected, but nobody hears back from them, right? You don't know. There are hundreds of people that you may be connected with, but there might be the odd 2 or 3 people that'll actually ever respond back to you in the sense that they'll follow up back with you, right? So in terms of networking, I don't know how interactive the session is in terms of like people even coming off mute and sharing experiences. But if there's anyone that has an experience they'd love to share, I'd love to, like, you can raise your hand. I'm happy to hear responses as well. The best way to troubleshoot and learn networking is from actual experiences, right? Like I can tell you, when I started networking, I was extremely afraid, right? Like I was very shy. So I used to almost be hesitant, like, am I, taking up someone's time? Am I going to be burdening someone by reaching out to them? But the more I learned about it, I realized that everybody at some level is helped by somebody. There's nobody in this world that was not helped by somebody else, right? The idea of networking, as much as you may feel pressure to do it or kind of hesitant and scared, definitely remember that it is something that's organic and that everybody is actively, having doing it and building relationships in different ways. I know due to COVID, it's kind of weird now because you have to do a lot of these Zooms and a lot of these sort of Google Hangouts. So it kind of sometimes may make you feel uncomfortable. But what also remember is that we're all in it together, right? So there's no kind of like onus on you to have to try to make it more than it is or try to prepare too much, right? Everybody understands. Uh, in terms of networking, what also is really important, apart from following up and know why and who you're reaching out to, is to be able to make sure that you have, when you're in the networking call or when you're actually doing a coffee chat with them, it's always good to try to take a conversation that's online or an email to a chat, because that gives you enough of a space for them to share a bit of their story, you to share a bit of your story, right? So fundamentally, a structure that we recommend when you're networking, one is to start with, talking about how your day went, right? You want to make it as unscripted and structured as possible, right? As much as you think that, oh my God, this person is a director or they're a big recruiter, trust me, they're a human being, right? They're a human being first. Maybe they had a really bad day and that's what they want to talk about, right? Maybe they want to talk about a soccer match that they watched that they really loved. Maybe they want to talk about a horrible experience that they had with a meal they ate. But you want to give people a chance to express themselves. And that's how you really want to begin, right? So definitely spend that time to share a bit about your day. And don't just say, a lot of people you network with, they'll ask you, oh, how was your day? Oh, I was okay. That's not a real answer, right? That's a very scripted, I just want to get down with this call kind of answer. You really want to dive deep, right? And when you feel comfortable to share how your day was, that's when the other person's really going to take an attempt to even listen to you because you heard them out and you gave them that space, right? That's the fundamental, the beginning. Then after that, you want to really deep dive into a bit of research that you may have done on them, right? Networking could be very difficult if you don't take the effort, right? If you're like, oh, I just found someone on LinkedIn, I found someone on an email, I met them at a conference, and I'm just going to talk to them about a job, right? That's the most transactional way. Networking isn't a bank, right? You're not going out to withdraw your money, right? Networking is like growing a plant. You're going in there, you got to research what plant you're growing. If you grow the wrong plant in the wrong way, it's not going to grow, right? It's going to die in a few days. That always happens to me and even Jeremiah when we're trying to grow plants because we don't do our research, right? But if you go in well knowledge, if you've gone through the person's profile, maybe they have a website, right? Maybe they have a blog, maybe they love doing podcasts. That's pretty big now. You want to take the effort to get to know them a little bit, because you can only have a really good conversation in 15 minutes or 30 minutes if you've spent the time to do a little bit of homework, right? It doesn't have to be extensive, but the more you know prior, the more well prepared you're going to be to bring that into the conversation. Because even when you think of school, right? Like when you go to school, if you go to school and your teacher's there and you haven't like prepared, what are they going to think of you? They're going to be like, oh man, this person knows nothing about me, right? They're not taking even a second to try to do any kind of preparation for me. So that obviously makes them feel a little underappreciated, especially if they're taking the effort to spend all their weekends doing a podcast. They're going to want to think that somebody's trying to listen to it or somebody's taking the effort to want to at least know what it is, right? So definitely making the conversation engaging by doing your homework, reading about them, going to the website is important. And also bringing that into talking a bit about their story, right? So if you've read about them, you know what they do. You can even wind into their story. You don't need, obviously, if in a 15-minute call, they're not going to be able to go into like the depths of their story. But what you want to do is make it easier for them, right? You want to touch upon things that are relevant for you as well. Maybe you're a soccer fan and they love soccer, right? Maybe they love hiking and you love hiking. Or you saw recently that they did a podcast about, uh, you know, uh, the earth and like empowerment and women empowerment, maybe. And then maybe you're really passionate about that. So you want to bring in those key things about their journey and your journey that really match into a conversation. And after that, you want to get into the value piece of the conversation, which is why you call them, right? Maybe it's a job, maybe you want them to be a mentor. And at any time, you must remember when networking, like it's not a one call win all kind of game, right? Most of these calls and conversations are ongoing. That's the reason, even with Wonsulting and the work we do to help people with careers and help them, is to help them realize that you should be passively building relationships all the time, right? You don't know where value is going to come or where you're going to be able to give value. Whoever you are, you're a student, you're a freshman, you can volunteer in terms of giving time, you can give feedback, you can always be a great supporter to whatever the person does, right? So never go into a conversation feeling like you have nothing to offer, right? You may have a skill set, maybe you can help volunteer with marketing or something like that to some of the initiatives that they have. right? So you want to actively be building the relationships, having those mentors around you. So when the time is right, you know who to reach out to for feedback, right? You don't want to think of someone who can refer you on the day of applying to a job. No, that's too late, right? Because there are going to be 100 people that reach out to them at the same time. You want to be the person that knows them for weeks, kind of checks in on them about, like, maybe they like boxing. You're checking in about them about that, right? Like, or maybe they're checking in with you about a holiday. So you want to build a relationship on an ongoing basis and make it as less transactional and as less like inhumane as possible. Cool. So those are some of the fundamentals when it comes to networking that we think of. I'd love to hear if you guys have any questions about networking at all. If you have any bad experiences or good experiences with networking, because there are many recipes to the soup, right? And what you want to identify is what kind of like relationship builder are you, right? Some people love to like, share stories with one another. Some people love to just give like career-based updates to one another. I mean, I've had networks with people where it's mostly been about like sharing blogs and articles with one another. So it kind of depends on what kind of rapport you're able to build. But definitely be very patient, right? Don't definitely have a lot of expectations, because that kind of makes it a lot harder than it needs to be. Cool. You want to go in and let it be organic and try to see how reciprocative the other person is, how willing and how much time they're willing to invest in it as well. Cool. So yeah, if you have any questions, do feel free. Else we'll break into the LinkedIn component of it as well. But I will give you a minute here to ask any questions, share any feedback. Have you guys ever tried networking? Come on, give me at least a yes or a no, right? Because I want to know where you guys are with it. Like, I don't want to get into the details. If you, yep, I see one yes. I see some yeses. That's promising. Cool. I see many yeses, right? You gotta have experiences, right? If you're doing it, try and fail. I like that, right? So you try it. That's which is important. Cool. I see a few yeses. So yeah,
And
if you're sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I was saying about I had in the chat earlier as far as you talked about doing it an email and taking it in person. What does that look like in COVID? How would you do that?
Yeah, the difference between like doing it in person and email is, trust me, now given people are available like more than before, I would say, right? Getting onto a call like this, if you were doing a real meeting, you'd have to dress up. Damn, you got to go get coffee. God alone, you got to drive and find parking. Like, it's a hassle, right? Now people are willing to meet more than ever because it's all like it's just a click, right? You got to find time in a calendar, make it match, and that's it, right? So it's a lot easier, I would say, than before, and definitely like with different time zones, it gets easier as well. What you want to do with it is make it more convenient, right? Maybe if you've heard of it like Calendly, like you should identify the time slots that are available for you, set up a Calendly. It's free. You can set up 15-minute slots, 30-minute slots, and just give the flexibility to the person you connect with, right? So just give them the link. They decide what time they're free. They just match it to your calendar and you get set up, right? So I would say it's easier. You can use different tools like Calendly. And yeah, try and think of the agenda, what do you want to talk about before, so that they're pretty prepared as well. I hope that I'm not sure if that was a question, Paul, but I hope that kind of answers it. I do see some other questions here as well. One says, a question here by Tilly is, yes, my question is, how do you increase response rates on reaching out on LinkedIn? Great question, right? So again, one is by adding a note, right? The biggest thing. If you don't add a note, you're a nobody. Think of meeting someone at a coffee shop, right? If you just meet and say, "Hey, can we be friends?" directly, or like try to reach out to them and expect them to be friends, you're not gonna directly like speak to you. You gotta address them, right? You gotta mention why is it that you're connecting with them, and also if you want to, and try to maybe also add a personal component to it as well, right? So an ideal template to reaching out would be, this is their name. Hey, I hope you're having a good day. I recently read a post about yours about, let's say, recruiting. I found that was really insightful for X reason. I'm looking at a role at your company. I'd love to connect and learn more about it, right? That's it. So you're also making sure they're telling them that you've taken the time to read a post of theirs, right? So you're starting with appreciation. Always start by adding value or appreciating. It definitely gets your attention. Trust me, with the hundreds of people that reach out to people, very few people take the time to even read what someone else is doing, right? So that small thing that you do could make a big difference. Second is, make sure you're very clear with your ask. There's no need to hide or lie about the fact that you need to, ask about a job or you need to learn something. It's fine. It's okay. You being honest about it is going to help them understand how they can prioritize you, when they can speak to you, right? Now, when I network with people, they tell me upfront, Alvin, I'm super busy, but because you asked, I will make time for you next month. It's fine, right? At least there's a clear expectation of what, why, and when. Right. So I would say those are the two big ingredients. The more you do it, the more clearer you are, the higher the response rate will be. And also, it's a numbers game, guys. Remember, like when you reach out to people, the more you reach out to people, the different kind of people, they might connect, right? It's not always like likely that they will connect. Another thing that you want to look out for when we're on LinkedIn reaching out to people is see how active they are. There's an activity section, right? You want to see when did they last post? Did they post last month? Did they comment last month? That kind of help you understand how frequently they check LinkedIn, right? No matter how good your message is, how much ever research you did, if they never check LinkedIn, the likeliness of them converting is low, right? So you need to make sure you're checking how active they are and doing your best with sending that message. Another question I see is in the end goal of networking, economic, making money. It depends, right? It could be anything, right? You can network to sell, you can network to find jobs, you can network to make friends, you can network to mentor. The end goal is what you want it to be. But the biggest thing with networking is to not make it as less about the end goal and more about the person, right? Great mentors are those that are with you beyond just one job. And like fun story about networking, right? So me and Wonsulting, Jonathan and Jerry with Wonsulting, never ever met them, right? I networked with them since COVID. I now have been working with them for a year and a half. They're all based in the US. I'm based in Canada, purely based on the fact that we resonate with the common goal and mission, which is helping underdogs turn into winners, right? We have a common background coming from first generation, like international backgrounds. That's it, right? And it's unbelievable how accessible something like that is when you find the right people who have the similar interests and passions of yours, right? So what you may think that starts off as, oh, someone that may just refer me could become a lifelong mentor and supporter, right? Or they could be there for you, could be there for them. So definitely think large when it comes to networking. The more you box it into a square, the lesser potential that sort of relationship may have, right? I see some people share the link. You're so correct. You're so correct about it. That's great. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So we will get into LinkedIn now to sort of go through what that looks like. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's me. Okay. And yeah, let the questions keep coming. I'm happy to answer them. I know there'll be a lot of questions around LinkedIn, especially if you use them quite a lot. Can you see my screen now? Not yet. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
now.
I'll let you know if there's questions. I don't think you can see it when you're sharing your screen.
Okay, can you see my screen? Can you see LinkedIn?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Cool, guys. So going to LinkedIn, I'll just quickly go through my profile. So we'll cover two things. One, we'll cover like the different content sections on LinkedIn and what you could do for it. And we'll also cover a little bit of the searching of people piece, right? Like what's the best way to look for people, right? So this is a bit of I have so many, sorry, need to be cleaner. A lot of different chats. But okay, so when it comes to LinkedIn, the first component is the cover page, right? The cover piece, right? And this is very different from your regular Facebook cover picture. I mean, that or a Facebook or whatever else you use, like a medium cover picture, which is very like I put whatever. But on LinkedIn, you're setting that professional setting or expectation right up the front, right? Like your picture, your profile picture, and your cover is the first thing that they'd see. And most people spend anywhere between 2 to 10 seconds on a profile page. So they're just skimming, right? And they don't want to be looking at something that's not professional or not something that's not very clear. So you want to take a little bit of effort to, it could be a collage like what I've used. You could go to Canva, which is a great app. There are many ready templates that you can just get off the internet, put your name on it, maybe put a few industries and roles you're interested in. That way it's very clear for them to know what a bit about you and who you are, right? I mean, with consulting and the work we do, I have like a personal hashtag, and we do a lot of content. But again, these are things that you can get more familiar with as you build a sense of comfort on the platform. Apart from the picture, you want it to be a bit professional. Again, it's not like your regular social network. It is something where, the more professional you can look, the better. Apart from that, then there's the title underneath your name that you can have. Ideally, you should have a combination of your past or present role. Maybe you're a volunteer somewhere, you're part of this amazing community and group. You can mention that. You want to mention a bit about the role that you do. Maybe you've done some certifications, maybe you've done some courses. That's a great place to mention that as well. And finally, a few interests of yours, right? Like I like doing speaking engagements, I like doing mentorship. So I mentioned that as well, right? So you can mention, like if you're like a designer, right? You can mention UX design. If you're like a marketer, you can mention marketing and PR. You can mention industries that you're sort of interested in as well. Because what happens is when people are looking you up or looking people in your industry up, maybe from their network, these are the kind of things that kind of pull you up, right? Like your title and the different headlines that you'll mention. Apart from that, when you scroll lower, you can highlight a few posts of yours. So again, I'd love to see. I don't know. I can't see the chat, but how many of you ever post on LinkedIn? Like I know people said they use LinkedIn, but I'd love to know if people actually use the posting feature on LinkedIn? Like, do you feel scared when you're posting, or have you ever tried posting on LinkedIn? Paul, you can tell me people are responding, but I'd love to know. I know some of you said you do use it, but I'd love to know if you post.
Someone
Do
said
you?
I rarely post.
Nice. That's fair. At least you're honest.
Someone said
I
I
know.
have posted. Posting gives me anxiety. Uh,
Fair, man. Same here. Like, I completely relate with the anxiety piece. Posting is scary, especially when it's in a platform like LinkedIn. You're like, oh, damn, my future boss is going to see this. I dare not post, right? So it's definitely very scary. And I completely relate. And I was a massive introvert, right? Before I met Wonsulting and the whole COVID period happened to me, I never posted. Like, I had, let's say, 2,000 followers or something, right? Like before that. So it's obviously posting helps, and the way you should think of posting to make it less less stressful for yourself is, one, you're posting majorly to share experiences, right? Like, think of it, you're in a classroom, you attended this session, you attend many of these great sessions. Posting is one of the ways through which you can say thank you, right? Appreciate Paul, his team, this great organization and the work they do. It'll, one, help them realize the work they're doing is great. It'll also help them know what you learned and you liked and you didn't like, right? And this is a great way to do, not just for this session, but for any session you attend. You could be attending a conference, you could be attending a workshop. One, it helps the person who conducted the workshop kind of know you, right? They'd be like, oh wow, these three people from that workshop, they mentioned, that they liked the workshop or what they learned. So I would really encourage you. I know it's kind of stressful, you kind of feel anxious, but you should try to do it, right? Because the more you do it, you'll kind of get out there, because people come to your profile page only when they find you in the feed, right? They're not finding you otherwise, right? So the more you try to be brave and write about your experiences, tag people that you know, the more visible your profile will be, right? So that's a bit about posting. In terms of your experiences, right? So again, like I mentioned, people spend very less time on your profile page. So the more crisper you can make it, the better. Uh, these are better examples of descriptions, right? I haven't really updated these two. So you want to make them in the forms of bullets. And what you want to try to do is make it quantifiable, right? Even if, let's say, you did 3 marketing campaigns, or you did a class where you handled one project. What were some of the numbers in that project, right? Like maybe the number of people you interviewed, maybe the number of, like the report, maybe you took it to conferences. So what are the quantifiable aspects in your experience? Maybe there were different softwares you used, right, with that experience that you had. You want to mention any technical components. And again, you want to try to mention of any skills that you built during that experience, right? Maybe time management, prioritization, maybe being able to negotiate, maybe being able to do presentations. So those are the 3 components: quantify, you know any tech components and skills. But again, depending on your level of interest and area of industry, it could differ. But what you want to do is, if I was in an elevator and I just quickly met you and saw your profile, I had 5 or 10 seconds, and if I could just catch one thing right from it, what would be that most effective thing to catch from it, right? So that's one of the things with it. So that's how you want to like map out your experience, mention the duration of it, describe it. And after that, the educational piece, you want to mention where is it that you studied, if you were on your dean's list or any other list. You can also put pictures here as well, right? Maybe you were a part of like a school club or an association, right? You can even mention pictures here and add links here as well, so that it's easy for the recruiter or someone who's kind of network with you to know what you're up to, right? This is another great place where you can look up certifications. And again, a lot of these certifications are free, right? So if you're interested in like marketing or analytics, like Google, Coursera, Udemy, so many free. There's almost no excuse left to say, oh, I don't have time or resources to learn something. It's more of, are you building that self awareness for it, right? So definitely encourage you to look it up. And the best way to know how to design your profile is look at what other people are doing, right? And like Paul can share mine, and we can share a few other samples as well. If you really want to know, let's say you're interested in Microsoft, or you want to get into Microsoft role into marketing, go to people who are in Microsoft, who are in marketing, see how they structure their profile, right? See the certifications they have done, the way they describe their role, their skills. And that's exactly what you want to try to use as a foundation, right? Because they're someone who's in the industry and they understand it better. Cool. So that's what I would say is also important to focus on if you're confused what certification you should do. Volunteering
what
experience, right? This is also a great way to build skill as well. Sorry,
uh,
go ahead, Paul.
a question in the chat.
Yeah, go for it.
What posting frequency should you consider for minimum? Just have enough presence, minimal. They're asking like once a month, once every 6 months, or how much should you post? Is the question really?
Right. That's a really good question. And the honest answer to that is whatever works for you, right? You don't want to start with any kind of high expectation. I'm going to do it 3 times a month or 4 times a month. It's not organic enough. The whole important thing with this platform, at least, is you want to be as genuine as possible. Let's say you attended 3 workshops this month, but you only have like X amount of hours to invest in writing a post, right? Maybe you write them periodically. You mentioned the experiences across 3 months, right? So I would say find a timeline that works for you, because you don't want to force it. The last thing you want to do is, start hating the process, think of it to be too, rigid and not in your favor. So that's what I would say. And, one, if you're enjoying it, you love writing, you get your rhythm, do it all the time, right? Like do it as much as you enjoy it, right? So that's what I would say for that. Going back to the template here, volunteering experiences, especially when you're a student, a grad, you'd have a lot more of this. And you want to try to, again, like detail it really well, break it down in the same way, talk about skills, talk about experiences. And as you build the experiences here comes to the skills endorsement page, right? So as you're going through your career, you'll identify, like, let's say you want to get into like, human resources, right? You'll identify maybe a few skills that are really important in human resources, right? Maybe it's recruiting, maybe it's like, going through people's resumes, doing audits, maybe this payroll you're interested in. What you want to do is identify the skills, and as you network and as you meet other professionals, this is one of the great ways to even network with new people, right? If you find someone that's really good at recruiting, go endorse them for this skill, right? Like if Paul and his team, right? The amazing work that you're doing here. You should be going to their LinkedIn profiles after this. Like, damn, Paul and his team, I need to endorse them for leadership, communication, right? And they're going to remember you, because every time they come to your profile, like, and all of these people, you're going to think about them, right? So it's a great way to, again, network as well when you're meeting new people. It's also a great way to build your own profile as well. As you endorse other people and, give back to them, more people, could be your peers, students, or the professionals you meet, will also work on endorsing you as well and your skills, right? And the final bit here is recommendations, right? So again, a very big piece as people look to find, you can mention 100 things in your profile, but how true is that? And it's only people who have worked with you, your peers, classmates, professors, that can actually vouch for you and say, hey, this person is credible, they're hardworking, right? And there are two ways to do this. So one is you can just go to ask for recommendation, click that, actually find the person you did a project with, maybe a supervisor, and ask for a recommendation, right? So you can actually like find a person here, you can find, let's say I find a random person, I find Jonathan. You can mention, how you worked with them. Do you directly work with them? Do you not? And you can even identify which role you work with them on. That's the reason it's important to define your roles so that you're able to link it here as well. And bam, when you hit next, Jonathan would immediately get a message. It would ask him to leave me a recommendation, right? So this is another good way to leave a recommendation. Maybe you worked with someone a year ago, you're kind of uncomfortable to do it yourself. So you can use LinkedIn as a tool to do it as well. And yeah, the more, testimonials you have, the better it is for people to, when they review you. Accomplishments, a great place to mention, projects you've worked on, awards you won as well. If you like, you won any, you took part in any competitions, you were a part of any kind of programs, a great place to mention some of that information. Yeah, and that's mostly what like a profile component, the components of a profile are. And as you make it and as you see more profiles, you'll keep improving it, right? Like, trust me, my first version of my profile was not anywhere close to what this is. And it's still work in progress, right? Like the more I look at other profiles, I learn new things that I don't incorporate, right? But definitely don't be afraid to fill anything in, or don't be afraid to, showcase what you've done. The more, only if you talk about what you've done and who you are, will people know about it, right? If you're afraid, you're scared about it and you never mention it to anyone, nobody will know, right? So that's what you want to avoid with LinkedIn and not mentioning things. I know we're kind of on time, so I'm happy to open it up to more questions. If you have any questions, about LinkedIn, about reaching out to people, I'm happy to take them as well.
I know someone has to have some questions. Take yourself off mute. Want to hear your voices.
I guess I'll ask a question. So I do have LinkedIn, and I kind of already did the basic profile building of my profile, and I'm following some people and things like that. I haven't really posted much. I think I just have like a link on
some internship I did last year. So you're saying we should mainly post, post what we're doing. So anything we accomplish, things like that. And what else could we post on our LinkedIn profile, or would be something else we could post on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of different ideas of what you can post, so one is, like I said, if you attend sessions and workshops, you can share learnings. If you read articles, right? If you're reading an article or book, you know, great place to again share what you've learned. Tag the person who wrote the book or who wrote the article, you know, tag the network where you found the article. Achievements is a good thing as well, you know. Uh, you can write, you know, reflections on other people's posts as well. You know, maybe you saw someone else's post, anything where you feel like you received value and you can add value to others, you can write about, right? The more value you add to others, the more people will resonate with it, appreciate it, and want to engage with it, right? So that's I would say is what you could do. It can go very vast, as like you can listen to podcasts, you can watch documentaries, you know, you can do hundreds of things, right? But you want to understand what is it that you enjoy to write about and like doing, and try to integrate that with what you write about, right? And if you want more ideas of what you should write about, again, try to identify what industry you like and try to find other people who create content and write about those industries, right? Or make posts frequently. And that'll sort of inspire to be like, hey, wow, okay, they wrote about this beautiful quotation or event. I should also do something like that, right? So the more inspiration comes when you find more like-minded people who also write or who also in similar in terms of interests as yourself. Cool. I hope that answers your question. But any other questions, guys, about this?
It's
Go ahead.
not. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, this is just, you know, it's a beginning of a conversation. You know, these things are obviously not something that you can, you know, cover all of it all together. But as you have questions, you can reach out to Paul, you can reach out to me as well on LinkedIn. I'm happy to, you know, respond back to your questions, give you feedback on your content or your profile, even beyond this conversation. I know I was talking to Paul, maybe we'll do this on this call, but you know, again, I don't want to throw you guys on the spot. But if you ever like work on your LinkedIn and need some feedback, definitely feel free to, you know, reach out to me, connect with me. I'm happy to provide you with feedback. If you need some of the templates to reach out to people, you know, Wonsulting on our website, it's wonsulting/resources. We offer like templates of covers, resumes, you know, templates that you can use to even network and reach out to people. So definitely feel free to, you know, go to the website and yeah, get some of those templates as well. But yeah, any parting thoughts, guys, before we wrap up?
Well, I was gonna say it's not often you get a LinkedIn expert on here. So if you guys have any questions, I'll open it up one more time. If anyone has any last minute questions right now, that'd be a good time to ask.
Alvin, I do have a question for you.
Sure, go for it.
So as a young professional that isn't necessarily like looking to move, I really enjoy my company. I often get a lot of LinkedIn messages from like recruiters, and I make it a habit to at least respond to said recruiters and tell them that I'm not interested. Is that a good habit?
Right. So I think, I mean, it's great that you like your company and, you know, you're very good with it. In terms of, you know, what you should and shouldn't do, in terms of like reaching out and connecting people and letting them know, I think, you know, no door is, you know, locked or too open. I feel like it's always great to let the person know that you're not available, because you never know. I mean, you know, you never know when you might be, right? Also in the sense that at least one thing that, you know, Jonathan and Jerry really talk about is you should always keep reevaluating your own self-worth and value, right? So I remember when they were at big companies like Snapchat, Facebook, they still interviewed at different companies, right? And it may not be with the interest of wanting to leave, just to practice. You know, you want to know what the hiring cycle is like. So sometimes having those relationships, connecting people, being honest with them is, I think it's fine, unless your company has a specific policy preventing you to do that. I think otherwise it's just the humane thing to do, right? What if you were a recruiter reaching out to people and nobody ever responded, right? You'd appreciate the two people that accepted it and said that they weren't available. So I think from that regard, it seems fine. Yeah. Cool, but good question. But yeah, any other questions, guys? Yeah, definitely connect with one another, right? You want to like, yeah, if you're not connected with one another on LinkedIn, like connect with one another, endorse one another, support one another's content, right? And like, that's the best way to feel comfortable about doing things, is when you know there are 5 other people doing it with you as well. Cool. But yeah,
I have a question, Alvin, for you.
sure.
So there's some students who don't post their picture on LinkedIn, a profile picture. And some of them have concerns, especially if they're underrepresented minority students, that, you know, they may be unfairly profiled if they put their picture on there and it shows that they're a person of color. What would you say to those students, and how should that profile picture kind of look? Or
Right. That's a great question. So in terms of like you feeling, uncomfortable or not confident with putting up your picture because of your background or the community you're from, I would say that's definitely, more perception driven and internal than it is external, right? What you want to really try to do is understand more about that organization, right? Like read about them, connect with other leaders, maybe from your similar background who might be in that organization. And when you ask me what's a good picture, what's good content, look at those leaders who are in those organizations that have pictures, that have content, that have found a way to feel comfortable being a part of that organization, right? And a lot of organizations, including my organization as well, have employee resource groups, and they're very targeted towards different communities, diversity, different like sexual orientation. So the more different uh, did seem like a scary word, and maybe still is to many regards, but it's also becoming a more comfortable word because a lot of people in these organizations are all very different, right? It cannot be controlled anymore. It's just what it is. So I think the more you meet these great leaders who are in these organizations, and that's what you want to use to connect with them, right? Like when you find other great leaders, maybe with a similar background or ethnicity, you want to connect with them and they'd be able to relate with your background, your struggles, your sense of uncomfort, because I'm sure when they started they felt the same things, right? So when you connect with them, you can even share with them that, you know what, I'm scared to put my picture up, like what do you think? And they'll be able to break it down for you because I'm sure they went through a similar struggle, right? So find more like-minded people and do more research, because the more you'll know that the company is very inclusive, they want to hire people from different backgrounds, communities, the less intimidated you'll feel, because they'll actually know that it could actually work in your favor and your strength, because you're somebody that they're looking to hire to for these roles. Cool. I hope that helps.
I think Dominique had her hand up if she still has a question.
I did, but it's okay. Thank you.
I'll also say it's important to like the different companies you're looking at. I think the research thing is important, that Alvin mentioned, because the last thing you want is to hide your picture, not know, let them know you're underrepresented minority, and it's not a company that's inclusive. So you end up working for a company that you're miserable at. So as much as possible, bring your authentic self to work, to your profile, as long as it's professional. Let the rest take care of itself.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, if they don't like you, they'd rather not like you. You want to work for people that like you, support you, and make you feel like you're at home. Yeah, it's so important, right? Because getting the job is not just day one, it's day 100, day 2000, right? So the more empowered you feel, that's when you're going to grow and stay with them. So 100% agree.
So, well, I know we've gone over on time, and I appreciate you, Alvin, staying over. Um, we'll cut it off for questions there, but I know you hinted about Wonsulting, like what you guys do. I'll let you close it out and share more about Wonsulting, how they can get connected with you, all you do, John and Jerry, and all of that.
For sure, yeah. So Wonsulting, is just a few years old now, and the mission of what we do is really to help folks from underrepresented backgrounds, first gen, international, from different communities, to get support with, with career navigation, right? It could be as simple as a resume, it could be a cover letter, it could be finding ways to network, it could be, doing LinkedIn strategies. So yeah, there's a lot of support. One, we do a lot of free content like on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just you can follow our pages, follow Jonathan, Javier, Jerry, Lee. I'm sure Paul can share the links with you if he hasn't already. But a lot of content, right? Especially on TikTok, if you're on it, we're big on TikTok as well. So we have a lot of free content. So even if you're like kind of not motivated about your job search, I'm sure if you follow us, we can keep you inspired, right? We share great memes as well. And apart from the content, we also have great templates and resources that are again free of cost on our website that you can use. And a lot of the folks on the team, are very willing to, provide feedback, provide inputs, like I said, shared myself. So do feel free to connect with me, others on the team. If you ever need inputs or feedback, we're happy to provide to you as well. But yeah, all the best on your journey, and we're excited to, see you shine as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll say thanks again for being here and giving your time. And like what Alvin was saying about networking, the whole reason why he's here, and I saw Jeremiah came on here later, is because of networking. I got contact with their founder, Jonathan, and how he really was inspired by our mission, connected with their partnership share, and then here we are about a couple of months later. So definitely reach out directly to Alvin or myself. Wonsulting, he talked about the memes. They have awesome career memes. If you want to get a laugh every now and then, they have tons of content, tons of free content.
Yeah. Also, what I'd love to end with is like, Paul, his team here, they're doing a lot of great work, right? And I'd love to see some appreciation. Like after this, if you learned something from what I shared, what you learned through this session and other sessions, do a post. Tag all of us. We're happy to support you on your post as well. But I'd love to see some appreciation for, the great community and network you have here, whether it's helping you grow.
Awesome. Thank you, Alvin. Well, that'll wrap up our meeting for today. If anyone has any last minute questions or comments, I can stay on for about 10 minutes. But otherwise, that is our August town hall. I hope you enjoyed it.